Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Haberman, and I am making this video to share the results of a study that I conducted back in October of 2024 and on the correlations between the big five aspects of personality and Holland's codes of career interest. So if you're receiving this link to the video directly from me, at some point I reached out to you over the summer or the fall of 2024 to participate in this study and or to distribute the questionnaire to friends, family members, or colleagues. As my way of saying thanks, I am just following up with all of the contributors to my study and sharing the results. So as I've mentioned in some previous videos, my dissertation was quite lengthy and the defense was scheduled for 45 minutes. And I understand how hard it is to find 45 minutes of uninterrupted time. So I broke up each section of my defense into separate videos and put them into a playlist for people to watch kind of at their convenience. And this video is the fourth in a series of five. So if you missed the first three videos, feel free to go back and watch those first because they explain a little bit more of the background information. The results section is generally the longest. I have done my best to shorten it up and keep it just to the relevant information that the participants in the study might find interesting. So I'm trying my hardest to keep this video as short as possible, but right off the bat, it is the longest presentation. I'm actually going to go through the demographic information as quickly as possible so that you can get a picture of what the participants in the study looked like. And then that way you can feel free to pause the video and look at the videos, the screen a little bit more if you're really interested in a certain slideshow. So all of the videos in this particular, or all the slides in this video are going to be pictures of the actual data. So the ages in this study of the people in the study, they were really well distributed among the working generations in the group. So we've got some boomers, quite a few Gen X and millennials, and then just a few Gen Zers. And I use the gene Twenge method for dividing up the generations by age. And that's just a personal preference. And feel free to ask more about that if you have any questions. As far as the sex, race, and education of the participants, overwhelmingly, the participants were asked to describe their race, and they overwhelmingly defined as variations of white, so Caucasian, European, Middle Eastern, some variation of that. And this is very representative of the primary study area, but because I did open up this study to the general population, it is not representative of the state or the country of where the study took place. Slightly more women participated than men. Parent education was interesting for the most part. The parents of the participants had an associate's degree or less. There were simply more people that identified their parents' education in that way. And then the participants themselves slightly had more of an education than their parents. As far as childhood, home, residence, and workplace, if you remember, if you watched the lit review parts of the second video, it talks about how childhood environment can sometimes be related to personality. So I did ask some questions about childhood environment. And so I specifically asked about parent education and where they grew up. So maybe that environment, the parental education, the parental influence, or the location of where the physical location of where they lived could have an influence on personality. And so I wanted to make sure I collected both of those pieces of information. And, just getting where a person lived and their parents' education, that is just one tiny glimpse of a person's childhood experience. But we as researchers, we can't get the whole picture. We try to just get little glimpses. And then over time, if we collect enough of those glimpses, then we can start to paint that bigger picture. The residence and the workplace questions were initially there to ensure that only in-county participants participate in the study. However, once the study was expanded, it was just used to simply observe how many of each, how many participants were coming from each segment. The little black pie in each of these pies is a different community in the county, and I de-identified them for this presentation just because I just wanted to make sure that those people and those participants stay completely anonymous. However, if you combine the black and the dark gray, those are the in-county participants. So roughly half of each pie, so childhood, their current residence, and then their workplace was in the county, and then half was outside of the county. And that was the bigger picture item that I was looking at. As far as the income of the groups, the out-county participants made just they had a higher median income. So kind of this high point of the income, they just had a higher median income than the in-county segment. And again, when I went outside of the county, I knew that that was going to be a risk. So this is where we get into the meat of my actual research. So the graph on the left shows the types of jobs that participants were interested in, while the graph on the right shows the types of jobs they actually held. So I'm going to actually start with the graph on the right. So you can see that the participants had the fewest realistic or hands-on scientific or artistic jobs. So all three of these jobs the participants had the least amount of those types of jobs. However, when you look at the graph on the right, this is a picture of their average interest in those jobs. And the average is kind of in the middle to high interest. So they have kind of an average interest in all jobs, but yet they're not in all jobs. And so that was just an interesting point. And I specifically am pointing out in the orange that there was a high interest in artistic careers, but very few artistic jobs. And that's for both samples in the in-county and the out-county sample. Related to, on the opposite side of that, there were not that many people interested in conventional types of jobs. And so those are your organizing data and that type of data filing, that kind of thing. But most people had conventional jobs. And then the other one is there was an incredibly high interest in social careers, the types of jobs where we help people. And they were also, that was one of the more popular types of jobs in the sample. And so that's just a very quick glimpse at what types of jobs and what types of career interests the overall population had, or the overall sample of this study had. Related to job satisfaction, from a scientific standpoint, this is actually not very interesting, but most people in the study were interested. They were either extremely or moderately satisfied with their current jobs and their overall career direction. So not a lot to report there. It did throw a little bit of wrench in my data analysis to have such high career and job satisfaction. I had to use a different type of analyses. And so that was kind of a fun experience for me. As far as the personality overall, so this 12 line is kind of the midpoint of the personality trait. And so anything above this, you can see that they're kind of higher in that trait. So the big ones that I'm going to point out is that the overall sample was slightly driven, kind of slightly intellectual and open. So they like problem solving and kind of daydreaming also. We've got some orderly or organized people in the group. Also politeness and compassion. So Those are pretty self-explanatory, and that's pretty much the overall sample. If we took an average temperature of the personality of the group, that's what they looked like. The more important piece is the actual research question. So this is the results of my study right here. If you remember if you watched the video on methodology, so the previous video, you might remember that I talked about the reaction walls that I wanted to study. And so I had all of my career interests on the top and all of my personalities on the left. And I wanted to see if there were relationships between all of those. And I found, so the little red boxes with the negative sign are negative relationships. And then the green boxes with the plus sign are positive relationships. And the I'm going to go a little bit more into detail on the discussion piece, but the reason that this is important from a results standpoint is that every single one of the career interests and every single one of the personalities had some kind of relationship. And this is important because whether you're a teacher running a classroom, administrator running a school, or employers managing your employees, you run across different types of people who are interested in different types of things. And so this information is actually really helpful for you if you need to. Maybe if you're working with somebody with one of these interests or one of these personality types, it helps you have something that you can work with. So that was the first, my primary research question. I found a lot of correlations, very cool contribution to the literature. Related to job satisfaction and personality, so I set it up very similar for this presentation. I set it up very similar where I have all 10 personality aspects. And it looked like we have a positive job or a positive relationship between both aspects of extroversion, intellect, and then compassion. All of those have that positive relationship with job satisfaction. And then the negative relationships were with both aspects of neuroticism, kind of that negative emotion part of personality. And some of these do make quite a bit of sense if you think about it. You know, positive emotion is associated with enthusiasm and negative emotion is associated with neuroticism. So it makes sense that people are more or less happy with their job. Related to my secondary research questions, number 1 and 2, job and career satisfaction related to career fit, there were no relationships found. This is a risk of doing a comprehensive study like this study. And there were no findings. There were no findings. I actually attempted to, try the data out and analyze it in different ways, and I just could not find a relationship. The contribution to the literature that this gives is career fit has very ambiguous results, and so I did contribute to the ambiguity in those results. Related to career fit and personality, so this was a very novel approach at looking at career fit for this study, and the following are just positive relationships between people that are in the same job that they're interested in. So, for example, up in this top right corner, we have people that are in enterprising jobs and they're interested in those types of jobs. And then the personalities that are well suited or well fit into that job. And that's kind of how you can interpret this. And so this is actually really helpful for during my defense, one of the people asked, what types of people should we be looking for when we're hiring for these different positions? These are just the people that are the best suited for the job. They're not the only people to hire, but they're just well fit into that job. And that is everything. I think I actually did this in the shortest amount of time because I am giving you the picture so that you can pause the video if you needed to. Uh, as I've mentioned before, if you have any questions or comments, if I emailed you, just respond to the email. And if you got this video from somebody else, just comment below and I'll keep an eye on those for the next month. So roughly until the end of June. And thank you so much. And I can't wait to share the last video with you.